Today, Rinpoche began the section on training the mind in the stages of the path for beings of great capacity. There are three major headings in that section. First heading, showing that developing the spirit of enlightenment is the only entrance to the Mahayana. Second category, how to develop the spirit of enlightenment. And third category, how to engage in the bodhisattva deeds after developing the spirit of enlightenment. Rinpoche covered the first category, and we're very excited about entering into the second volume of the great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment.
Shamba Duezan Teba Chembos and the Jebu Sanji Kubung to again the Bayezan and Teba Chembos. Jebu Sanji Kubung Lichawaju and the Marota Teba Chebos at what's the Mando. That near to Raje and Shanchu Sambit, that teaching Tebas Umarba, what the Teba Chembo, the Cheju dress, maybe Saint Angela, maybe the water then the Shamba down. Then the
Rangel dans Nietu de Yomari.
Nietu dans Rangel tul tat Saint Angel me de Yomarwa.
Okay.
Sanji Gomon to Bichetu Lang Gomba de Yomarwa. Member is on the table members. And Teba Chambers what the men are.
Okay. All right, so once again, we're looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stage of the path to enlightenment. And then specifically today, we're beginning the section on the great vehicle, or the stage of the path, or beings of great capacity. So what makes this great? So it's called the great vehicle. Why is this word great in front of this vehicle and not in front of others? So the reason for this is that the mindset is different, and that the spectrum of the object of observation is much more vast. So when we look at the mind that is the basis for the great vehicle, it is a mind that wishes that all sentient beings be free from suffering. So this is a mind of compassion that's generated. Prior to that, a mind that wishes all beings have happiness, and its causes are generated, and this is a mind of love. So in dependence upon these realizations, first love and then compassion, and then an attitude that wishes to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, one is able to traverse the great vehicle pathways. So the reason it is called great is because the object of observation for the practitioner of this particular vehicle is all sentient beings. And the motivation is to become a Buddha for the sake of all of them. So in the hearer vehicle and the solitary realizer vehicle, we don't see that object of observation, which is all sentient beings. We don't have that broad spectrum of a mindset that we find in the great vehicle. Therefore, it's referred to as a lesser vehicle because the scope is lesser. It's the great vehicle is referred to as the great vehicle because the object of observation is so great, is so large. It requires that practitioner to wish to become a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings. And the object of observation through his or her entire pathway in the great vehicle is for the sake of all of them. And therefore, it is called the great vehicle. So these are the excellent qualities of this vehicle which make it great, which are not found in the lesser vehicle, and therefore it is referred to as something which is higher because of that object of observation. Diksan.
That just Chimbi was the Lamrim zero nas.
Okay, so now we're going to look at the stages of the path for beings of great capacity.
that chibi chimbi lari then ma chibi chimbi laji rimbale chibi chimbi laji rimbale and Khensur Rinpoche Jesu sheba shila labi chu so that ma that then ma then karsugre that janjibo tel and saji sun de undo chuju je and changje je langus saji sun de saji sun.
Okay, then the Nipa the Donagare.
Nipa kade.
The Tambo the
Tambo chuju ro.
The homage.
Nipa changje re.
Sanja the Serna.
Changje sena that de
Sanja.
chibu chimbi lang nyanglan chegu bi jusen kares. Chibu chimbi lang second kares re. Chibu chimbi ne lang de ne chibu chimbi lang de jobu goba kariyo res. What the head gozare.
What did you want?
Changje.
Then Sumba?
Sumba lang de ta lang ri chibu kurun sa ji len ro. And teje jogo senje kona den ba da senje bi chu sheba la bi chu sa ji sun wo de lang ri chibu kurun lang de len ro do. Lang ri chibu kurun de sa ji sun do.
Okay.
Wo de insare.
X. Understanding the path. Musheba, I understand the path. Okay, so that's a decent.
Okay.
Then this sache sum the Gariana, the Larin Chenmo
chuju. Jizun Lama, Jizun Tamba, Tuji Chenpo Temba Naji, Shala Kubi Shaselos, Jizun Lama, Tuji Chenpo Temba Naji, Shala Kubi Shaselos, what the German chuju is, Chuba Jubas.
The Larin Chenmo sache, the Jipa Chembi, Lanji Rimba, the Ewan Ni, the Senche, the Go.
Tijin Senche Kuna Temba,
the Sumir.
Senche Bichu, Shubal Habitu Sunro, Narichibu Saji Kuno Suma.
Then this sum,
the Mujit Chuju, Tanja, Long said the Lotte, Laring Saji on Linwood.
And the Tambo order.
Tambo Chuju said that the Rota.
Yomari, the Lamrim Sache.
Siji Madumu, Larin Saji Nola, Tijin Jogo Senche Kuna Temba. Senche Bichu, Shubal Habitu Sunto.
Then this sum Jawa got
What the long said the Lotus on the Lender.
Oh, okay. Okay, so just clarification. So if everybody has volume 2 of the Lamrim Chenmo, that's where we are now. And when we look at the explanation of the training the mind and the stage of the path for persons of great capacity, we find that there are 3 categories that are presented. First, showing that developing the spirit of enlightenment is the only entrance into the Mahayana. The second is how to develop the spirit of enlightenment. And third, how to learn the bodhisattva deeds after developing the spirit of enlightenment. So these are the 3 categories that we find. And before that, we find an introductory section. And the introductory section, according to Jayan Sheba's commentary, has 3 parts. First, there is a homage. Second, there is a reason for practice, or why would one want to practice. And the third is an understanding of the paths, or understanding of pathway. So these are the 3 categories that then lead up to these 3 categories of showing how the development of bodhicitta is the only entrance to the Mahayana, etc. Those 3 categories. So we begin with first category of Jayan Sheba's commentary, which is the homage or expression of worship, is what it's technically called, expression of worship. So it says here, respectfully I bow down at the feet of those excellent and revered persons who have great compassion. So here, this is Lama Tsongkhapa's expression of worship.
다 주주도 제주 담바 투지 전부터 된바 나치 샤라 거비 샤살로스 다 지르면 주주 들어와 강라 줘버 줘버스나 제주 담바 투지 전부터 된바 성원도 조 제주 잠배양 준비 지르면 라마 소리는 지르다 제주 담바 투지 전부 돈데 만나지 샤라 고비 샤셀로스 잠베양라 소비 안 제르무시 라마술라 샤세 이제 줘봐줘봐스.
So when we look at this expression of worship, respectfully I bow down at the feet of those excellent and revered persons who have great compassion. Geshe Rinpoche's, Lama Tsongkhapa's root teacher was Manjushri. So when we look at this expression of worship and who it's really being paid to, it's first and foremost being paid to Lama Tsongkhapa's root teacher, Manjushri.
다 지름부터 뒤다도 지름부터 셰지네 그게 그쪽으로 인자를 말봐. 네, 어떻게 그게 그쪽으로 어디 잠배양 셰지네 어디 그런 걸 냐면을 간에 나고 해줘 봐.
So an emanation of Manjushri had a teacher-student relationship with Lama Tsongkhapa. Lama Tsongkhapa realized Manjushri and saw him in person, an emanation of of Manjushri in person, and was taught by Manjushri. Lama Tsongkhapa was taught by Manjushri.
다 줘봐 주고 주생 가르스나 어디 줘봐 이나 소노 사그레스 그와 용그레스 줘봐 주기나 안는 소노 사그레 그와 용그레스 안는 소노 근제부들레 안에 도와 용그레 동에 세너그레스 안에 소노 남이 데터 동에 타지세 소노 때문에 미 상반 나천 루스 안에 파싱기 가르사 모두 중에 추주 네트워크와 추노 그시 이제 전세 강의 로라 편바시나 나시니 지는 돈을 제바 가다야다 때문에 돈은 나바 군된 하존도 좀봐 네트워크 주선배 수지 소지진에 용달라 샤셀로스 자와샤망고 비오테 모두 전고들레 Geshe Lharampa son choba jobarota. Geshe Lharampa son choba jobate ane choba jobala tena gawa yungres gawa tege ane dawa yung debu dawa yungre dogen senagres ane sono sagres sono dembe me samba najun rus sono de yoba ina ane makurun sanlu karyoba ina ten ru yungres what the passion kadung ngodu jenge chuju passion 배신 놀이래.
That's
소노 남이 데터 등에 타지세. 소노 되면 매 삼번 나죠 두스.
So why is it necessary to have an expression of worship? Why is this homage placed at the beginning? It's done so in order to accumulate merit. One accumulates merit by paying homage to these higher beings, and by generating merit, one has the causes for future happiness, because merit is virtue. Virtue leads to happiness, and also merit extinguishes non-virtue, which is the causes for suffering. So this is the reason for an expression of worship. It's to accumulate merit. It is said that if one accumulates merit, then one can achieve and have anything he or she wants. So it's for this reason that we find this placement. And when we look at the Abhisama Alamkara by Lord Maitreya, we find it at the very beginning an expression of worship that is then showing a praise by the means of the qualities of the three knowers. The knower of basis, the knower of paths, and the knower of all aspects. These are the three knowers that are explained in the Abhisama Alamkara. And it states that through which the exalted knower of all leads hearers seeking pacification to peace, that which through the exalted knower of paths causes those helping migrating beings to achieve the aims of the world, and through the perfect possession of which the subduers set forth these varieties having all aspects. To the mothers of the Buddhas, as well as the hosts of hearers and bodhisattvas, I pay homage. So this is the beginning of the Abhisama Alamkara, Lord Maitreya's ornament for clear realization, and the expression of worship that's presented there to the three exalted knower mothers in order to achieve and generate merit.
어제보다 주주 그듯이 다든마 니버들 창자성도 창자들 어디 창자 당가서 창자 대공들 고아 문라와 고아 문라 nga yosar nga 고아 문라 nga yosan 고아 rejin zangdil jajibe saji rija yongre
Nga.
고아 문라 nga yosar del sanje들
Okay.
네 고아 문라 nga yosan nga rejin zangdil jajibe saji nga ja yongre
Lesser.
어떻게 갈래지 좀 말해
So so that's the expression of worship and the presentation of that. The second category is the reason for practice. Why does one want to practice? Jayan Sheba states that there are five, contained within this section, there are 5 ways of looking at it, 5 different ways of looking at it. So therefore, this section has 5 categories in the commentary. Dixon.
what saji datne 가르쳐 그래 차자라 사지가 있는 사지 너무 도더래 사지 너무 도더네 용어래 다 튕이 받는래 니 받네 대대로 구이님이 군하주네 윤ren도 공발레스 구이님이 지동에 가이동에 나이동에 치동에 라수가 도서 군하주네 윤ren도 공발레 세바타지 네 멤버이 롱터 통데스 네 그 저와다네 바주가로 멤버이 롱나지 통그레스 멤버이 롱터 통데 녀모바다 동에냐와시 타발라 통되지 이군도 동아데스 멤버이 동에라 멤버이 친다 토바 예정어든 게 상바지랑 네 대답이 동에데 레도 녀모 오기송아 인자 녀모바다 동해와 녀와시 네 녀모다 동해 보면 타바투하는데 봐 용그레스 동해를 가보면서 네 녀모다 네 동해 보면 타바투하는데 봐 용그레스 녀모바다 동해 녀와시 타발라 돈되지 이군도 동화데스 네 내중 사바 용거로와 이군도 동화데 네 이군도 동화데게 랑가르냐래 제고르잖아 하바송냐래 제고르스 랑 하바르면서 송라 네 송라 하나 퀄리티 타바투진스 하바송들 하바이나 너 퀄리티 타바투그레스 하바송스나 네 수진지 르덴바 딩은지 pomba 덴바 싫어 순사 덴바 어디선들 하바송라도 말바 수진을 하바데 야바여바 있나 수진지 르덴바 안 딩은지 하바데 야바여바나 딩은지 pomba 덴바 되는 돈이 또 비셔 어디여바 있나 되는 레도 녀모바들 애들도 니분 주고 저러 타바투 그레스
맞아.
난 하바송서 어디 갈래글라나
So we begin with just right in the reading the Lamrim Chenmo. After such extended meditation on the faults of cyclic existence from various perspectives, you will see all of cyclic existence as a pit of blazing fire. Then you will be completely consumed with the desire to attain liberation, the elimination of suffering and the afflictions. So here, if one thinks again and again about the downfalls of cyclic existence and the various suffering one has to endure, such as the suffering of birth, the suffering of aging, the suffering of sickness, the suffering of death, then one will see cyclic existence as, here it says, a pit of blazing fire. So when one sees cyclic existence in this way and recognizes all of the faults that one and all of the sufferings that one has to endure within it, then one generates a desire to definitely emerge, just as one would want to be free from a blazing fire if one was in it, or that likewise one would see cyclic existence as something to be freed from immediately, and then the state of renunciation would be realized. So this is how one generates renunciation this desire to emerge from cyclic existence, and this emergence is called liberation. So how does one achieve liberation? One achieves liberation by relying on various pathways. So here it says, if you learn the path of the three precious trainings, you will attain liberation, which is free of cyclic existence and is indeed irreversible. So the three highest higher trainings are the highest higher training in ethics, which is like a stable body, the highest higher training in concentration, which is like a strong arm, and the highest higher training in wisdom, which is like a good saw or a good weapon. So here, these comparisons are made, or analogies are made to the highest higher trainings. And if one has the stable basis of the highest higher training in ethics, coupled with or combined with the strong arm of the highest higher training in meditative concentration, which utilizes as its object of observation emptiness, and the weapon or good saw, which is the highest higher training in wisdom, which has as its object of observation emptiness, and that wisdom is like a sword or a weapon that's able to destroy the grasping at true establishment. So by having a concentration which is focused on emptiness and a wisdom which is focused on that, one is able to cut ignorance, with that wisdom that's united with the other two higher trainings. Dikson.
What the Lavasun on Tangasu Kanju, what the Buddha Jayo Marbe, because the Kanju Tenju Kangalote, non Lavasun, non Denesons, non Lavasun, non Deneson, the Kanju Buddha Jat, the Langabi, the Nendu, the Deneson, do the Marbe, do you know Joja Tutin Lava, Tingan. Do the Neg Joja Tingan Lava, maybe the Neg Joja Sherach Lava, what to look at what then later, Mare.
So when we look at the pronouncements of Lord Buddha, we find that there are 100 texts that are presented there. And these 100 texts explain the higher trainings in the following, highest higher trainings in the following way. The sutra pronouncements of Lord Buddha are said to be explanations of the highest higher training in concentration. The Vinaya teachings of Lord Buddha are explanations of the highest higher training in ethics. And the Abhidharma teachings that Lord Buddha gave are teachings on the highest higher training in wisdom. So we find there are the three trainings in the three baskets. So the three trainings of ethics, concentration, and wisdom, and then the three baskets, which are Vinaya, Sutra, and Abhidharma. They relate to each other in that order as well.
Long quality Tabatuji, they are Turiji better Haduba Maimers, and then Turiji better Haduba Maimer, Merjan Casa, Daniel Tutan Rajin, two Dajumba, Rajida Jumbazu, and then what the Tabatuba Yodrota, Tabatuba Yoadite. And then long labarum which is soon Latin quality Tabatuji, they are Turiji Peters, Turiji Peter Hadubaya Maimus, Turiji Pesan du, Dendulje, Nazulje, Dendulje, what in the Kuraku de Rota, Tabatusa do what in the Yomar, Tabanya do Yomares, Nyamuponsa de Tabanya Yomares, Haduban Mainte, Luntasun in Shiros. Nyamupunsa do Dua Yomares, and then Turin Dagamares, Turil Hadamalice, young as only what the Kuraku de Tendamares, Nyamuchi Puntabaina, Nyamuchi Puntabaina, Nyamuchi Mares. They are Turiji better, Haduba young Maimus, Nyamupunsa do, and Nyamusi Yomares.
Bless
yuan jang jun seba tang yuan ten shuru yin bes da nyu tu rang je tu kan nyu tu da zhong tang rang je da zhong tu so ane jun seba tang yuan ten shuru yin be rang gi tu ma zu ba teni je nas rang gi tu su tu ba zu ma nyu tu da zhong tang rang je da zhong tu rang de ta xin yo ma res rang gi tu su zu yo ma res rang gi tu ma zu la teni je na rang don ma zu ba yin be ju sen ti shi na yin de ya ne se wa se jin ne tu rang je tu ge yin ju de xia de ne se wa ma tu xin jin tang ji ge de xia men ba de da te ba chen men ba yin zang se jin ta sang ji ji gu ne ti jian de ju gu be nas
Bless up.
ne ne tu da zhong rang je da zhong tu so da zhong bu tu sa ku ji bu xia la yo sa ba da ji bu yo de wo de de nyang ba ja ne ke ba ne de de go ta
Bless him.
shi tal mon
Bless him.
shi bi si la mene shin ni ji shi la mene dans te ne tu da zhong da je da zhong tu so shi tal mon ne wo de ta ba tu sa di de wa yo de wa de nyang ba ja ne wo de shi tal mon de res
The Lung Covenant
shi bi si la mene ni shi ngo du je ma ba
with the Jen.
돈이 두비 싫어 되게 네 돈이 두비 싫어 되게 네 돈이 두비 싫어 되 시비실라면 신 돈이 두비 싫어 추노 대보 마루 두비 싫어 될라 때네 아니 대질 넣는 그래 대질 넣어서 대질 레도 녀모벌 넣는 그래 너 코알 넣는 그래 시비실라면 신지 실라면 다 세제 타질라면 신지 되어봐 이나 ane shetal hungu mares ne
Shiripacha.
heji chenpo de yoba yena shi tangu res toni de shera de na sibi tangu res sibi ta su ko marwe shi ta shetata temer da tu dwal nya ba jan de de shi tal hungu mas garwa heji chenpo yena shi tal hungu mares what the good you de ta
Grasping. Pacification. Bless up.
다 고저 셔탈 냐바자네 어데 개바개바 냐바자 둘 때는 그때 알한게데 상지마도 젠수지 한두고 만다 kudu nyaba jada nga zuni kada na zi te ya lan kan te sanji ma tu lan tu ma res ne sanji go de ku de ngai chele chue tan ya chun da no nyang yong man de sanji te ban de la zo wa shues ne ne tu da jong da ja da jong chron so ne ku de ngai chele chete ya ku de ngai da ta yo res da no ne sanji go toyo mares ne sanji te ban de la zo wa shues ya lan ne 티징 남루정지 상지 우레스 어디 상지가 되소네 고든야자래 하고 있었다. 어디 냥데 가도 바신 곳들 냥데 가도 뒤에 얘도 좋아서는 가도 들려래.
맞아. 근데 그드젠론 캅카레
뭐도 다
캅섬버
셰비실라면에 신실라면에 거 손바 니바 손바 지다 다다다고 말 제마단데 야
이츠이나 되는 게 Okay. So then it goes on to read if you learn the path of the three precious trainings, you will attain liberation, which is free of cyclic existence and is indeed irreversible, unlike the glory of high status within cyclic existence. However, your elimination of faults and attainment of good qualities will be incomplete. Thus, you will not have accomplished your own aims and can only accomplish the purpose of others in a limited way. Eventually, a Buddha will exhort you, and you will have to enter the Mahayana. So, we go back up here. It says, you will attain liberation, which is free of cyclic existence and is indeed irreversible. So once one achieves the state of liberation, one does not go back to suffering. So that is a permanent state, and it's not reversible, meaning that once an affliction has gotten rid of, it's no longer there, so it can't rise again. Once all of the afflictions have been gotten rid of, once all of the afflictions are gone, have been abandoned by practicing the path, then there's no longer anything to create cyclic existence ever again there. So therefore, liberation is a permanent state because it's a permanent abandonment of the afflictions. So therefore, what creates it's not there anymore. Therefore, it cannot occur again because it's the components that make it occur no longer exist. So this is why it's not reversible. Unlike the glory of high status within cyclic existence, whereas if one is born into the gods, one is born as a human, no matter what state or how high of a status one achieves within cyclic existence, one will have to be reborn again, and it's not a permanent state. So therefore, when we compare liberation to high status, liberation obviously is much greater because it's a permanent state, whereas high status is impermanent. And it says, however, your elimination of faults and attainment of good qualities will be incomplete. So if you are, thus you have not accomplished your own aims and can only accomplish the purpose of others in a limited way. So up to this point, these pathways and practices are to achieve a liberation for oneself alone, are not aimed at others and others' liberation. So the type of liberation that has been taught up to this point is irreversible, but not complete because it's missing the factors of the great vehicle practice, which will eventually have to be practiced no matter what, because even if one achieves the hearer solitary realizer status in nirvana, and is in nirvana and in a peaceful state, he or she will have to enter the Mahayana sooner or later and will be spoken to by a Buddha and encouraged to do so. And they'll be very reluctant and are not approached right away because they sit in such a blissful state of peace and can sit there for a very long time because of the abandonment of all the afflictions. But the pathway is incomplete and they still have the obstructions to omniscience. So we find in the Abhisamma-alamkara, I'll look for it at break because it's coming up, we find a quote that says that through the wisdom realizing emptiness, cyclic existence is abandoned. So the grasping at true establishment is what creates cyclic existence. So one abandons it through wisdom realizing emptiness, but through through love and compassion, the grasping at pacification is abandoned. So the meaning of this is that in the hearers and solitary realizer vehicles, in the lesser vehicles, there is a attachment to peace that can take place, or attachment to pacification that can take place. Whereas if one has this practice of love and compassion, then this acts as an opponent to that desire to have pacification and sit in a state of nirvana and bliss. So that's what is meant, that's why that is pointed out in the Abhisamma-alamkara. Let me just make sure. and it's what is meant in the Lamrim Chenmo here, where it says, thus you will have accomplished your own aims and can only accomplish the purpose of others in a limited way. Eventually a Buddha will exhort you and you will have to enter the Mahayana. So Buddha will come, even if you've achieved liberation in the lesser vehicle, and you're in this place of bliss, in meditative absorption, and the Buddha will come and exhort you, will ask you and implore you to enter the Mahayana, and you will have to then practice all of the pathways of the Mahayana from the very beginning in order to get rid of those remaining obstacles. Sampa Diksang Rinpoche.
Oya tajir Rinpoche wate time lang shuju mare se time lang shuba ina na radon de jende ga yong mare ane shi tal hone ane saji kuine ya saji teba chemul ti du go jegres shiro de deba ina tamu ni ne teba chemul jane teba chemul yugures saji je kuine tejen du yugu na Ludan Demba Naji, Shiro Demba, Naju Demba Yima Ina, 다음에 티바 쳔볼 요구레스 티바 쳔볼 요바레데스 네 파신 뒤바 던도면로아 파신 뒤발레 지된 던루발라 지된 던루 출라 토메베스 지된 던루 출라데네 테멘 요바 있나 지된 던루비 토요마레스 네바요마레스 토메베 티바니 부텐도 본셰진스 네트도 라제니데 본네 본성가서 본자 본나지데 이마레 되일 마주바지 안 담은이네 토제 토비자보 토제 네 티바 히지덴발라 티바 쳔볼 요구레스 토제 티바 히지덴발라 젠드 젠벤 로지 라진 대단 조스 담은인 티바 쳔볼 요구레스 테멘 요주마 테멘 요나 라디오데 젠드니자 타신바 요마레 타산제기 야 냐야레 하네 티진을 티두고 제거래 담은이네 싫어 여바 이나 담은이네 티진 랑로자네 티진 요구로 어떻게 손대 인사래
Blessing.
야
So, this, when one recognizes and sees that a practitioner who doesn't include these other practices is lacking something, then it makes that practitioner want to practice the Mahayana from the very beginning. So it says, going back up, thus you will not have accomplished your own aims. And please, I don't want the clicking to be on the video, on the tape. I can hear it, so it means it's whoever's using the phone. I know it's going to be on the tape. Please just put it on silent. However, your elimination of faults and attainment of good qualities will be incomplete. Thus, you will not have accomplished your own aims and can only accomplish the purpose of others in a limited way. So, one who recognizes that he or she is limited, then will want to practice something that is a complete path, that isn't limited, because the potential for limitlessness is there. So it says, thus you will not have accomplished your own aims and can only accomplish the purpose of others in a limited way, meaning that you can only be of very little service to others because of your own handicaps, because of your own obstructions that are present. And it says then, again, eventually a Buddha will exhort you and you will have to enter the Mahayana. Because of this, intelligent persons should enter the Mahayana from the beginning. So because of recognizing the drawbacks of not entering the Mahayana and the incomplete practice, then one should enter the Mahayana right from the beginning because of this recognition. And then it says, as Asura's Compendium of Perfection says, so here we find a quote from a Prajnaparamita text. Once you have abandoned forever the two lower vehicles which possess no power to provide the welfare of the world, enter the vehicle which the conqueror Shakyamuni compassionately taught. This consists only of helping others. So here, the meaning of this is, once you have abandoned forever the two lower vehicles, this is referring to the hearer and the solitary realizer vehicle. This doesn't mean, it's not, as a note, it's not speaking in a negative way about them. It's saying abandon the view which is a view that is for oneself alone, not for all. So the view of those two vehicles is a view which wishes for liberation solely for oneself. That's the basis of that view, the basis of that vehicle. So abandoning forever that two lower vehicles is referring to the abandonment of that thought which is just for oneself, and then achieving the thought which is for all. So that's what the great vehicle is about, achieving Buddhahood for the sake of all. The two lower vehicles are achieving liberation just for oneself. So one has abandoned that abandoning that smaller way of looking at things, that smaller scope of thinking, and adopting this greater way of thinking, because it possesses no power to provide welfare to the world. Because those two lower vehicles will not allow one to become a Buddha is the one who can truly help the world. Therefore, one should abandon them. Enter the vehicle which the conqueror Shakyamuni compassionately taught. This consists only of helping others. So here it's stating that one should practice the great vehicle from the beginning, because this is the vehicle which will allow you to provide welfare to the world, to become a Buddha, the only vehicle which will allow one to achieve the state of omniscience. So, and that vehicle consists only of helping others, meaning there isn't a thought to become liberated for yourself only. There's always a thought to do it for the sake of others. There's never this thought. It says consists only of helping others. So as a note, it doesn't mean that that's all one is doing the entire time. It means that the basis of all practice is for the sake of others. So I guess we'll take a short break and we'll be right back.
Hey Jeff, when you have a moment, I have a question.
Okay.
My question was, how exactly does a foe destroyer take the steps to become a fully enlightened being? Or how does
do you
he
mean
train?
like a hearers and solitary realizer foe destroyer?
Like, what does he have to? Does he have to like?
Okay.
Practice? You know.
Okay.
What I mean?
Just the reason is there's a Buddha is a foe destroyer also.
Okay.
So there's the lesser vehicle foe destroyers, which are not Buddhas, and then so you mean the ones that aren't? What do they have to do?
Like you saying how like, the ones that were in Nirvana.
Right. They have to go to the Mahayana. What do they have to do?
Yeah.
Rinpoche, the Nyantu Dan Ranjel Da Jumba, the Gari Chingu, the Sanjay Yongdu, the Sanjay, the Tepa Chembi Lang, the Nyanlan Chegu, then Khensur Nyanlan Gari Chegu. Gangisena Khensur Da Jumba Sash. Then Khensur the Nyanlan Gari Chegu. Konnichiwa.
Tanya tu da jong da raja da jong da zo de tonglang nga de ne tu le yo are raja le yo are te ta ga ta da paranga da paranga lang nga de ne tu le yo are raja le yo are ti jin le yo are ma ba tanya tu da raja tu zo go de tonglang gona so ba ta tu nya ne che ne nyomo bon so res nyomo bon ba yin so da jong ba res Inaya nyomo bacha pontu maris. Nyomo bacha mabu ba yeza sanji tu mat. Taji chemba rego maris. Chu taji chemba dele nyomo bacha de deduris. Bacha de mabuna taji chemba sanji de tu maris. The marwa cheba de marba.
Then a kongi chiwa then yanlan gari chegu.
Yanlan da kozu de toni tu beshira da nganyu samba de yanlan re. Rani jibi nyale jedrwa ane wate jendun san matan sa tijin shutu medrda.
So when we look at the various vehicles, the hearer's vehicle, solitary realizer vehicle, and the bodhisattva vehicle, the two, hearer and solitary realizer, are the lesser vehicle, and the bodhisattva vehicle is the great vehicle. There are 5 paths in all 3 of those vehicles. So there are the path of accumulation, preparation, seeing, meditation, and no more learning. All those 5 paths are contained within each of those vehicles. So there's a 5 hearers paths, 5 solitary realizers paths, and 5 bodhisattva paths. So one who is a hearer or a solitary realizer, foe destroyer, who is abiding in nirvana, has abandoned their afflictions, so therefore is no longer in cyclic existence. If they've reached the state of foe destroyer, if they've completed those 5 paths, the 5 paths found in the Heart Sutra, Teata Om Gate, Gate, Paragate, Parasangati, Bodhisoha, Gate, the first path of accumulation, second Gate, the path of preparation, Paragate, the path of seeing, Parasangati, the path of meditation, and Bodhisoha, the path of no more learning. If they've completed those pathways according to their vehicle, they no longer have afflictions. But there are still the imprints of the afflictions present if they haven't practiced the Mahayana vehicle. So therefore, they are abiding in nirvana. They no longer have suffering. They no longer are in cyclic existence, but they still have what's called obstructions to omniscience. And those are the imprints left over from the afflictions. The afflictions are gone, but the imprints themselves cannot be gotten rid of without the Mahayana path. So this foe destroyer then goes and practices the Mahayana pathways, the 5 pathways, which contain similar practices of wisdom realizing emptiness and so forth, but their focus and purpose is for the sake of others. So there's an accumulation of merit and so forth that takes place that wasn't present for the lesser vehicle practitioner. So therefore, they have to accumulate it. They have to realize it. So they practice the Mahayana paths.
Yeah.
Does that answer? Yeah. And you had a question?
Well, I guess my question is, as these people in nirvana, beings in nirvana, have practiced and gotten rid of their afflictions, wouldn't that mean that in their pathway they had greater kindness and compassion for others in order to have gotten rid of their afflictions? And wouldn't they in some way have had some type of, very good high qualities?
The Nyentu Dan Ranjel, Da Jumba Chana, Jewa Ngama, the Kon Ninji Dan Shamba, Nyalan Che Gusun, the Kon Sampa, the Kon Tarpa, Kon Nyalan Le Depa, the Ninji Dan Shamba Gu, the Juje.
내가 타바 토발은 희지 쳔보 그거 말어 그거 말 테메다 좀 저기 줄 희지요 뭐 희지 쳔보요 말어
맞아.
타바 토사로 다 희지 쳔보요 요 말에 타바 토사레스
the Chenmo Yoma, Ninji Dan Shamba Yengu?
희지 사요 지로 희지 다 샤바상 요 그랬대
Yengu Yure. Yengu Yure.
희지 쳔보요 말에 샤바 쳔보요 말레스
In Kongi Triwa, the Shamba Dan Ninji, Chenmo Yoma, Shamba Dan Ninji, Yengu Yure. Kagi. Yengu?
샤바 요 희지 요선 지로 희지 쳔보메 샤바 쳔보메스
Yene Yengu Atal.
예 그스 가르고 같아서
Go, the Tarpa Guna, Shamba Dan Ninji Yengu.
요 아우고스나
The
요 고스나 디그로 샤바다 희지
Yugo.
희지 쳔보요 뭐
Okay, all right. So the answer is that the hearer and solitary realizer, lesser vehicle practitioner, does not generate great compassion or great love, this love through the force of attraction. It is not a requirement of the state of liberation. One can say that they possess or have compassion and love, or love and compassion, but not love through the force of attraction and not great compassion. It's not a requirement of liberation. Does that answer the question?
Kind of.
So a hearer or solitary realizer, a lesser vehicle, a Hinayanist who is now in nirvana, who's a foe destroyer, that state that they're in doesn't require great compassion or love to be achieved. It requires getting rid of the grasping at true establishment that makes that person see everything wrong and react incorrectly. Once that's all gone, once the afflictions are all gone that are created by that grasping, then that person no longer suffers. But they aren't doing all of that for everyone's sake.
I see. Thank you.
Diksha.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So now we'll continue with the text.
Tawa tambanin tijin jugure so tada pashin duba lonchi rendoa. Ane dewa dan je dans de damade malanda danshin temo junje mawan do tonas temo je mawan do tona leji tamba jendun gabos jendun gabo rangi tenla rangi tenla toku jishi tens rangi tenla toku jishi tens shezong bata ruwa tege te karisagondo ta tena wad payin diba tege dedam mede malang rao tona dewa ina re medewa ina re toso kala tenpa maruba malang rao res malang rao janshins temon chunjis 네 kuzu teme tuzo le wate teme ngala juya ge deba de karije ne wasna tomo gi chunje mawan do tonas tomo gi chunje ane te konda ni la mo mariba da lendel mo mariba tende chunje ane kuzu wa teme len juya ge deba yores mawan do tonas leji tamba jendu gobos leji tamba jendu du jabares rangi tenla toku chetu tuns ne jendu de yobane rangi ten tunju mares yene yobane randu tunju mares tamba ni ne tijen jugu so tun haman rabu insare laji tamba jendu yobo rangi tenla toku chetu tunde rangi ton tunju ma jendon tungu res what is on the said shezon bataro what about tambre.
So then going back, I'm just going to reread Arya Sura's Compendium of the Perfections. Once you have abandoned forever the two lower vehicles which possess no power to provide welfare of the world, enter the vehicle which the conqueror Shakyamuni compassionately taught that consists only of helping others. And also, so this is also from Arya Sura's Compendium of the Perfections, the Paramita Samasa. When people see that joy and unhappiness are like a dream, and that beings degenerate due to the faults of delusion, why would they strive for their own welfare, forsaking delight in the excellent deeds of altruism? It's saying here, when one recognizes that both joy and unhappiness are not truly established, so they are empty of true establishment, they are like a dream, and that it says beings degenerate due to the faults of delusion. So the degeneration of a being is due to that ignorance that grasps at things as being truly established. So when we look at delusion or ignorance, it can be broken down into two categories. Ignorance of karma and its results, and ignorance of the nature of reality. So it says beings degenerate due to the fault of delusion. So that grasping at true establishment is what creates this degeneration. And Rinpoche, then they long itriwa yure de dimu let's go gongya mapchik de dimu
junji mawan do tonas
dunga
junji mawan do tona leji tamba jendo yobo rangi tenla toku chetu tunju mares
legi tamba shindun gawa shin rangi dunla. That's cool. Going maybe check the Molan. Then the June. Demu June.
Demu June go Timel Royal and Deba you are Deba Demuras. Unas Lange Tamba, Leji Tambaroa, Leji Tamba Gendun Gapone, Leji Tamba Gendun go to you ne Rangi Tunla Toku Chetuns. 제도 요번에 라존 전주요 말이스 제도 저 담부진 티진 주고르스 어디 담은 잡고 인사
Then the donagai the mawe drotong na the donagare drotong.
담은 전주에서 다 테메 봐서 테메를 로야 되어요. 네트로 아제서 테메를 줘야 되어요. 테메를 줘야 되어요. 로나 야버에서 통고로 통화대 담은 전주에서 담은 전주 어디 티진 로야 되어 티진 로 통고요 말이스. 테메를 줘야 되어 통대레스.
Then the leji dampa donagare
레지 담바데 쟁그 돈 주바 레지 담바 말베 레그나네 야슈디 젠돈 주바들와 젠돈 주바 레지 담바레스 레지 담바 젠돈디 요샤 랑기 돈라 도쿠치 제두전 전주요 말스 젠돈 전고레스 제두전 전주요 말스 어때 다만 잡은 인사 세송 바다로스
Okay, so just going back then to Arya Shura's Compendium of Imperfections, I'm just asking Rinpoche about, and that beings degenerate due to the faults of the delusion. And it looks here that it just looks a little bit different. It looks like Demu mawa drotong na. Then 강에서는 인지케 서비오 말.
네, 뒤도 라제도서 테멜 로야 되어요. 테멜 로야 통고로. te 가르진 통과서 뜨먹 중에지 통과했어. 그래서 테멜 로기니 야버에서 된거로 디진 로야 통고 말보다. 뜨먹 중에지 어디 테멜 로야 되어 통과했어. 뜨먹 중에서 뜨먹 중에지 마와 통나스.
Then Timu Jungare. 뜨먹
중에가 네, 뒤도 라제도 테멜 쇼로. 테멜 쇼보다 뜨먹 중에지래서다. 뜨먹 중에지 어디 티베 쳔모 주고요 말았어. 테멜 로야건 되어도 그랬어. 마음도 통나스.
That's so.
다 레지 담바 젠도로 젠도 용네 안에 랑이 되라.
Okay.
듣고 제도 전주요 말이야. 젠도를 주고래. 담은 티진 주고래. 어디 담은라고 인사를 했다.
So here it's just saying something like that you who hold this view, and so it's speaking to the reason I'm having trouble is it says beings degenerate due to the faults. It's saying something more like, and you who hold this view see the faults of this delusion. So it's something like when people see that joy and unhappiness are like a being, you who see the fault, and you see the faults of this delusion. We're talking to hearers, solitary realizers, saying, you see the faults of this delusion, then why would they not strive for why would they strive for their own welfare, forsaking delight in the excellent deeds of altruism? So I just have to look at it another time when it's not now. But it says something to the effect of like that you who hold this mawa is a view holder, drotong, going. So you who hold these views that see the faults of delusion and see that joy and unhappiness are like a dream, you hold these views like this. Why would you strive for your own welfare then? And forsaking delight in the excellent deeds of altruism. So it's speaking of generating this desire to help others, to work for the sake of others. It's saying the opposite of striving for one's own welfare is striving to work for the sake of others, the Mahayana intent, the intent of the great vehicle. So not desiring liberation for oneself alone, seeing others and wishing for all of their welfare. Digsan.
sheson bataro o chanjunga nan tambudre
That's
teyenchetel tambudre ta niba denmete ta rani se tenmani batle mudwa.
So that's the first of the 5, and now we get into the number 2.
Nimba de lo de janji be wo de song du gun and ma shi jin dos se jin ro gun ma yin ba de shi jin do de ne yuan do wa ja yu ji mo ro anes de ne yuan do wa de ja yu ji mo ro an se jin ta ji rang ma yin ba shi jin do de ne yuan do wa ja yu ji mo ro anes se jin yuan do and
The giant Sheba, the Delpa.
janji be wo de nipa de mi go de song de re
The Mambo Yuri. Okay, the Nipa,
nipa de lo
Sentient
de
Tamshe Mayimba.
Sijan ta rang ma yin ba she jin dos ma she jin do de ne yuan do wa ja yu de ji mo ro anas Sijan ta rang ma yin ba she jin do ja yu de ji mo ro anas ja yu de ji mo ro anas an shang ju san ba zu ge ane Sijan ta rang ma yin ba she ne de ne jing Sijan yin da yuan do ma ro Sijan samal lo ane shamba de ji gong ro wo de le de men ro 누구 마 셰진도 동에 요한도와 자유리지 모르와는 자유리스 다 신전 단지 손지 리기 쳐도 말배 신전 손지 리기 쳐도요로 손지 리드 신전 사말 요로 신전 사말 손지 리 요서야 돼 쇼스나 하는 가서 이치 해봐도 말배 이치 해봐도 돼 손지 전주리에서 그러 전주리 이치 해봐 내가 말로봐도 라진네리스 이지 쉐바다 이 쉐바다 마루바도 신 참말 요로다 손지 그리기 쳐도 요로 이지 쉐바다 이 쉐바도 제주 그리지 나chen 온도야 돼 이지 쉐바도 말배 나chen 온도로 제주 그리 아니 주나 대바 마루바 쉐비 다 돈이 돼 네 라지 내리서로다 사제도 돼 뭐냐고 차노면로
Natural ornamental. So the number 2, there's a large explanation in Jayan Sheba's commentary of the heading. And it speaks to that all sentient beings are of the lineage of the kings, meaning that all sentient beings have Buddha nature. So why do all sentient beings have Buddha nature? There's 2 reasons. One is the reason which is like an ornament, and that is the mental consciousness itself. This is why sentient beings have Buddha nature or have Buddha potential. And the second is the natural reason, or the reason of nature, and that is the lack of true establishment of the mental consciousness itself, not having any inherent establishment. So its lack of true establishment is part, and the other part is the mental consciousness itself. So we have this king's lineage, and this type of intention sees all sentient beings as one's mother, and therefore, because of this realization, and because of what's generated as a result of believing all sentient beings are our mother, there is no discrimination made between sentient beings. So all sentient beings are looked at equally, and there isn't any exception made in terms of who will be helped and who won't be helped, because of the way that one generates this realization. So one has this Buddha lineage, and it says, so I see it all within here, why all of this points are making number 2. So one has this Buddha lineage, and the kind of thought that is generated in order to become a Buddha is one that has no discrimination when it looks at all sentient beings and the desire to be helpful. Diksung Rinpoche. So now let's look at the Lamrim Chenmo.
Rani kuitsomenro, ne chedin sare. Rani kuitsol honwa dan rawa. Tongwa na jans. Tongwa na jan landu jebi shiraji me sonbe. Nyanga de treyi shuso. Rumene ba. Kondo Chuba Tonas, that Nietu the Raja to Sukangalote, and Rani Sisul Honga, Sibisu Dal Hoya Marde, Sisul Honga and Rabres, Honga and Rawa, Roa Na Jans, Roa Na Jan, Lando GB, Shiraj Mason Base, that Nietu the Raja Timen Royal Debate. Lando jibe shiraj meme abateki jibares meme abjunjeres Lando jibe shiraj me sombe nyanga da tayis nyanga da tay shusun rumeneba nyanga da tay shusun de marbeta shiji diba da tay sanji ko mutun deba yina nyanga da tay tawata tay shusun rundeba Tiba Chenmo Nyanga Tay Shusun Rundobares, Tijin Rundobarwa, Tijin Rundoba, Tin Sare Nyanga Tay Shusu, Roa Munibas, Timetuso, Nyanga Tay Shidi Bombi, Sanji Kumuntubi, Shusun Rundungo Mares, Shusu Drum Munibar, Kondu Chua and Rabaris, Combachude, Tonas, Kondu Chua Tonas. Jayu read on Tempeso and Janji to the Redota. Sijin Galo Sanjik read on Temper, read on Marba. Sijin Tangelo, Sanjik Rig Chowders. Jayu read on Demba Nas. Sijin Tanjil Sanjik Rig and Sijin Tanjil Ichiba Euro. Ichiba Megan Sijin Yomaro. Ichiba Jinjuk Res. Sijin Galo Sanjin do Ichiba Nachan Renu Marba. And then Nache Deba Maruba de Moniko do Mariba Moniko. Nache Deba Maruba Marina, and then the Ponto Maro. Each Shiba Deba Maruba. Jayu Ridan, Demba Nas, Jayu Ridan Deba Na, Jela Soa Mebadan, Tadaki Tunto, and then Tadaki Tuntos. The dog don't carendo. The dog do Jumba Rites. The dog don't Cavalendo. Ale.
The page.
The dog don't do the dog don't do the that you didn't turn out to do. Jai read on them, but not Jai read them some do, Sejak Galo Sanjik read on them, Marba.
That's so.
Sejak Tamal Sejak Sanjik Riores,
That's so.
and Namba in a Sanjik Riore, Ishuba in a Sanjik Riore, Hindu in a Sanjik Riore, ne Lada Mayina Sanjik Riore, Nanson in a Sanjik Riore, Send them Senja is a Shinjitala, Sanjik Rimek Yomares,
That's so.
Sanjik Rid, Senja and Sanjik did them Chanugres, Rid Josana, Senja Tanjik each Yabatan, each of them Marubanid, each of the Jenjuk Rije, each of them Marubate. Rajinere, but Rajinere. Each Sheba Mana to Lata Nutum, Neleka Karin Jetu Marbuta. Each Sheba Mena, Timing Long Guntu Mare, teaching Long Guntu Marbuta. Each Sheba read to go to read.
That's so. Nijimiche Jipugo. Okay, so when you see that beings have fallen, just as you have, into the ocean of existence and are stumbling, unable to walk in a safe direction because of the eye of wisdom, which distinguishes what to adopt and what to discard, for them is closed. It is not better to care for others and to strive for their welfare. You who are in the conqueror's lineage. That same text says, why wouldn't anyone who is in the conqueror's lineage and who works for the welfare of the world have compassion for those stumbling with their eyes of wisdom closed, and joyously persevere so as to clear away such confusion? So here, so we're looking at this conqueror's lineage. Conqueror's lineage is referring to Buddha nature or Buddha potential. So once again, there are two types of Buddha nature or Buddha potential. First is the ornamental Buddha nature or potential, and this is referring to the mental consciousness itself. It's translated as another name, but also. And then there's the natural Buddha potential, and that's the lack of true establishment of the mental consciousness. When we look at omniscience, omniscience is not truly established. Therefore, the mental consciousness is not truly established, and that then shows that the nature is the same. Our mental consciousness is not truly established, just as omniscience consciousness is not truly established. So when we look at mental consciousness is required in order to go to school, in order to learn anything, in order to learn religion, in order to learn Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism. All of these subjects require a mental consciousness to learn. And all practitioners and all people have a mental consciousness. So we're not saying that only Buddhists have Buddha nature. All sentient beings have Buddha nature because all sentient beings have mental consciousness. So this mental consciousness is the sign of Buddha nature. So that's why we say that a Christian, a Hindu, a Muslim, all have Buddha nature, all have Buddha potential. There is no exclusivity when it comes to the nature or potential. So it says, why wouldn't anyone who is in the conqueror's lineage? So that means all beings who are have mental consciousness. It says, who works for the welfare of the world. So the conqueror, a Buddha, works for the sake of all sentient beings. And we all have this potential, this nature. Have compassion for those stumbling with their eyes of wisdom closed. So here, this is referring to the self-cherishing attitude. This is referring to hearers, solitary realizers, those henionists who are stumbling with their eyes closed, who don't understand that it's necessary to have this attitude that cherishes others in order to get rid of the obstructions to omniscience, which are the imprints of the affliction. So these can only be gotten rid of by working for others' needs, by wishing to become a Buddha for the sake of sentient beings. So the desire is to, if one desires or wishes to get rid of all of the afflictions and become omniscient, then it's necessary to work for the welfare of all sentient beings in order to do so. And here it says, joyously persevere so as to clear away such confusion. The confusion here, Rinpoche said, also is referring to the obstructions to omniscience that are present. So one is confused if one has the obstructions to omniscience and has their eyes closed because they think they've achieved a complete status. But a complete status has not been achieved because the obstructions to omniscience are still present. So it says, have compassion for those stumbling with their eyes of wisdom closed, and joyously persevere so as to clear away such confusion. It could even be just clear away confusion, not such, because such appears to connect to the idea of just working for others. Rinpoche said the confusion is the obstructions to omniscience. Detsko nge tsampa kanga lasan.
Yeah.
Kanga lasan. De Rinpoche. De puyik. De chirangua. Okay.
Da jayu re na deba so this do da kanga lo sanje re yo ares. Ri da ngaso san da ngaso li sheba do. 이 시바 대마 마루바로 대마 마루바 인데 폼봉가 보다 자라지 도만나마 나도 버지수 따오스 싫어지 보고들도 이제 어디 최근가 대마 두고 동바레스 대마 마루바레스 인데 이 시바 대마 마루바로 왔다 이제 시바 제주가 제레 이 시바 대마 마루바데 라지네레스 그래 이 시바 산제는 나체는 그래 근데 이 시바 대마 마루바도 원이고 그래 원이고 라지나다가 자주면 원이고 원이고들 나진나다가 찾고 원이고 루브나다가 찾고 원이고 산지기 주체 녀모바다 시주 대바본본 고대다 나체 대바마루바니다 말베
Like cheek tapa, cheek matapa, the yerbe.
저 대도와다
Okay, then he mean garre.
자유리 나덴바 나 자유리 나덴바 나스 안 강가로 산지리 요아르스
Leso.
다리에서 가서 산다나 가서 이치셔봐도
Leso.
어디 전주거리 세컨드레
맞아.
가서 산지도 이치셔봐 나셔리는 그래스
Leso.
안는 가서 이치셔봐 데모마루 버레스
Leso.
데모마루 텐데 임베스
Leso.
어디 데모마루바도 라진에레스
Rest, leso.
산지를 때때 뭐니고 라진하다가 찾고 뭐니고 그러는 그래 나셔리 돈이 되다
Ale,
야
Moniku. Okay.
Yeah.
So, when we look at this, going back to the quote, and it says, the conqueror's lineage, this again is speaking of Buddha nature or Buddha potential. So when we divide Buddha potential into categories, we divide them into the two categories. First is the ornamental potential, which is referring to the mental consciousness itself. And this mental consciousness is the same mental consciousness, or the same kind of, is made of the same things as the mental consciousness of a Buddha. So the omniscient mental consciousness is just a mental consciousness, just like ours is a mental consciousness. So this is that first ornamental Buddha nature. And then the natural Buddha nature is referring to the actual the lack of true establishment of the mental consciousness, just as the omniscience is not truly established. Our mental consciousness in its mode of subsistence is not truly established. So this is what is meant by the two types, and all sentient beings possess this mental consciousness and a mental consciousness that is free of true establishment. So if one wishes to get rid of these negativities, and the final negativities, then it's necessary to achieve a path which will abandon them. And the lesser paths do not allow one to abandon them. When we look at the bodies that are achieved, there are the nature bodies, and the nature bodies are the two, the nature body and the wisdom body. So there's one nature body that is the actual body that is the omniscience of the Buddha. This is sometimes called the wisdom body. And then the nature body is the actual lack of true establishment then of the cessation and the lack of true establishment itself. So one is permanent and one is impermanent. So it's the nature body and called the wisdom body. And these are the two of the Dharmakayas. Let me see if I got everything. Need sampa kanga lasang. Needs
다나데 오마라 주바도 오마 타주원이 지자진 시대 잡으래 좋다 마시는.
So this view of the lack of true establishment is according to the Madhyamika Prasangika, the middle way consequence school. When we look at tenet systems, there are 4 different tenet systems, and the presentation that we are giving of lack of true establishment is according to the Madhyamika Prasangika school.
자유제 나대바 나 yenla sowa memba dan tada ge don do zoma merites sanji ge ri nadenba na yenla sowa memba dan yenla sowa mebi don do jeju mares ne jen senjen dan je do sanji do como to bicheto nyalen je gores merites tenile pashi du ba injero shiro meson luchu chobala teme batuzo wate shiro meson ne kandu chuda namres jiden duru jayu jerina jiden duru jayu jerina tijen marbenji jiden sentient tantric duru wate ne jayu jerina sanji jerina hijin meji chibu ne kanji yus what the sanji ge dans des bateaux dans des bains sont j'ai que tout ne hije meje chibu kanji yus kullu dans shiro dans des bains what the hije nyalen je ge sinje meje ge yongu mares teme bato shiro ge men son what the nyalen je go mares shiro men son konri chuba teme bain je wata jiden dönru jayu jeri nas ane teba chembo ane domin teba chembo le shugur karasana jiden jayu jeri nas nga susanji grida dendi wares jiden dönru be sinja tanji dönru be sanji grida dendi wares iji shebatan isheba dema maruba ni da dembe hiji meje jibu suju demba yin sonza dendi ludan demba yina ane hiji meje jibu suju duyo mares te tamba yin hiji chambu dan shanchu sen tijen zun ures tada monse zunru sumu sons tada monse teba chembi jalan drebu da jebala momba se ne zunru sumu sons neba zun ures tijen shu ne teba chembi lan zunru je ures wad ba de ni pare.
So why wouldn't anyone who is in the conqueror's lineage and works for the welfare, who works for the welfare of the world? So we are all sentient beings are of the conqueror's lineage. All sentient beings possess this Buddha nature. A Buddha works for the sake or welfare of all sentient beings. If we all have this nature, why wouldn't we have compassion for those stumbling with their eyes of wisdom closed, those working for themselves, those who are not the mipa, the sherab mipa, the su, the nyentu dan ranjel, su geche shedu, me kanga sentient the susuju kanga, nyentu dan ranjel.
Shiro means karsa shiro means ruchu jobalas teme marbe teme.
Okay, so let's
teme no shiro means and kama chu de ganda ko teme no there.
So it says the stumbling with their eyes of wisdom closed is referring to, I just want to make sure I was translating it correctly, that it's referring to the Hinayana practitioners who, and it says, and joyously persevere as so to clear away such confusion. So joyously persevere on the great vehicle path. The great vehicle path is what allows one to achieve a state of omniscience, allows one to work for the welfare of the world, allows one to achieve what one's nature is anyway. So that's what is meant by that. And then I'm just looking at going back to the different bodies. Rinpoche was describing actually the nature body. There's nature body and wisdom body. Nature body is actually divided into two parts. There's a naturally pure nature body and an adventitiously pure nature body. So those were the two nature bodies that Rinpoche was speaking of. And the naturally pure nature body is the absence of inherent existence. And the adventitiously pure nature body is the absence of the adventitious stains, the afflictive obstructions, the obstructions to omniscience. So when Rinpoche was saying omniscience, he was speaking of the absence of those stains which inhibit or stop one from being omniscient. So the nature body and wisdom body are two separate bodies. Nature body has two categories. The Gongal Mepachi, the Digson Rinpoche.
Da somba denama tere somba denama dena chebu na je dewa da jimba da chebu ze ne 젠지든 코도 치와라 샤와리데스 데나 집나지 도와다 진바다 지비제 요나만데 젠지든 코도 치와드레스 젠든 코도 치와 리데스 젠든 코도 치와 샤와리데 랑기든 zanla 미바네 돈도다야 토모인 비시로스 랑기 돈 좀바들 돈도 지바레스 돈도 돈잡을 토모레스 돈도 저랑도 루시레스 토모인 비시티 셔 쳔모나지 나주네 제제 팬들라 타지도 좋아이데스 네 테바쳔모 쳔모나지 나주네 제제 팬들다 젠라 팬바다 도와 젠라 팬바다 도와 타지 주어레스 센스젠다지 도와다 템바다 동안다 트레이셔도 테바치면 양란제고로 모두 손도 말베.
Listen. So that completes number 2. Now we begin number 3. Here you should use a great person's joy, charisma, and strength to shoulder the responsibilities of others' welfare, for focusing only on your own welfare is a trait shared even with animals. Consequently, the fundamental orientation of a great person is to focus solely on achieving the happiness and benefit of others. Here it's saying that one should use all one's strengths to work for others' welfare, because just thinking about oneself is something that animals can do. Animals do as well, whereas we should look to exceed the motivation of the animals, of an animal. Nene, sende gomi lo lamas.
다 전도 고메 로진로와
Let's.
호말라 timballes 신도니기 자칸 가다르 수저라니사 신도니기 자칸 안에 고주 바팔라도 저기 왔다 짜사그로 말베자 신도니기 자칸 가지 가다 수장세 수주게 사그레스 라니사 신도고 공비 동안 최신이나 강고 통사 카공수나는 네 최통하고도 바지로다 신도 공비 동방 최신이나 강고 통스 최라송의 카공수 통으로 대나 더나 제비전도 셰바 전바 강인바 제비전도 전바 강인바 텐디 제바니데 대제비 제드 파스 녀만라진 다준 조안 상시 강인 단스 녀만라진 제바 다간데 디 제바인데 젠도 두고 제수 바바 제비 제야슈드레스 제비 제드 파 녀만라진 다준 조아 나지 강이다 녀만라진 다준 조아 강이 단스 다준 조아 강이 단스 어떤 가서 힌두고 주의나 가는 지시도 말봐 녀만 나칼도 수르디 신다도 되게 따나면 되게 텐데 그래서 녀만라진 다준 조아 나지 강이다 콜라메지 사인지데 데바 강이데 콜라 저메바지 콜라메지 저인서베 콜라메지 사인지데 데바 강이데 라든 가메 쳔분나지 라지 텐다데 대단지된 팬당 대유 룰라 지도줄 셰송소 어디바돌에 송바 소딜이 신도니기 자칸 가다 수정사 바발로 두세그로아 시도 가공선 도르세지 도안 최신년나 강고통
So do.
ndena jibi jendu sheba zunba kanyiba Dendi jeba yede. Tedi jebi zed pa, jebi zed pa, jen dön san damba de, jebi zed cheba to pa ba ya shwe deres. Pa. Nyama la chen da jun tang wa. Da jun jo wa na je kan yin da. In shin ga zhen do. Nyama shin da ko lo ge ten jin ro ge ji xie de he du yin na de. Xie xie de sa.
Then the Nima Shah Kasakala. That's good.
Ah.
The sun's great.
Nyama la chen da jun se da lu
Then
xue.
the Nima gi yunten geche shegadu. The Nima yunten the Nima Shah Kasakala. The Kasakala drogudu. The Shintu Korlo Kasakala drogudu. Nima Shah Kasakala drogudu. The Dan. The Sad. The Jikten Kanga Dangdu. The Nima Shah Kasakala. The Sa Jikten Kanga Dangdu.
Nyama la chen,
Yunten,
nyama la
Yunten.
chen, na nyama da ko ganga zamle da ganga segro.
The Yunten.
La chen je.
Nima Yunten.
Da lu xuen ba se do, da jun house.
Lesser.
Wo da lu xuen ba se ka. Da jun jo wa, tang je kan de ek jang bin sar ba. Da jun jo wa, tang je kan yin dans. Kola me si sai ji den de ba kan yin de. Ne radun game
Seldu.
Chenmo naji raje tenda te radun game Chenmo naji raje tenda te teda jiten pen da de rula jitu jul she song so de ma to song ba ren do song ba
The Sa the Kanga the Dangdu. Yene the Sa the Kali Kapudu Geche Shegomare. The Sa the Chala Kanga Sa Gangla. Yene Sa the Chala Sama Jigutsapo Geche Shegomare. The Kali Kapudu Geche Shegomare. The Nima Kasakala Shargadu. Yene Kali Kapudu Yomare. Yene the Tepechembi the Nyalan Cheken. The Jipu Chembo, the Randun Yomare, the Shendun, the Jikten Payung Gapodu, Jikten I Payung Gapodu, the Drapodu, the Sa, the Chalakanga, the Ganga, Yene, the Sa, the Kalikapudu Geche Shegumare, Nima Kasakala Shagudu. Geche Shegumari, the Randun, Shendun, the Yunten, the NGK Selbudu.
Shindu nyegi zakhan gata shuja rani sa Shindu kumbi dongwa kyushin nyena gang utong. Dena jibi jendun sheba zunba kanyin ba dene jibi jendun sheba zunba kanyin ba dendi jiba yashu deres dedi jibi zed pass jibi zed denda de yashu ndam tu jeng tu ruba deres Nyama la chen da jun jo na je kayin ta khula ma ji sai ji den de ba kayin des o de kar sun do in no
The Jikten, the Sa, the Jikten Kanga Gangla Yere, Yene Kalikapu Yomare, the Sa Kalikapu Yomare, Digsong. Dandrar.
yeah what the ji do da
This Sa, Rinpoche, this Sa, the Gangla, the Semchen, Mambo, Kamba Jagdu, then Chala, Gangla, Mambo Yure, the Sa, Gangla. Yene Sa, Kali Kapu Yomare. That Sa, Geche She, the Nye Kali Kapu du, Geche She Gomare. Kali Kapu Yomare.
the agent the did
The Draudu, yeah. That Sa, the Jikten Sa, the Chala Kanga Gangla Yure. Yene Digsung, that Sa, Kelangudu.
radon game chembu na je raji tenda des san na je so wor beta tenda de tada ji den pen da de rula ji du ju she song so
The Ngo, the Jikte, the Sa Ngo, Chala Tamche Gangla. The Nima Ngo, Kasakala Shagdu. Dene de Shanchu Sembing O Randun Pang Shendun Tsanodando.
어디 비지 잡으면 매로 당가도 대자겠네.
Oh, Dandradu.
야.
So we were just talking about it's really written very poetically in the English, in the Tibetan. It's not as written as clearly. So he was just asking what was said in here because it almost appears like it's. I'll show you. So it says. Here you should use a great person's joy, charisma, and strength to shoulder the responsibility of others' welfare, for focusing only on your welfare is a trait shared even with the animals. Consequently, the fundamental orientation of a great person is to focus solely on achieving the happiness and benefit of others. Chandra Groman's letter to a student says, "Domestic animals eat a mouthful of easily found grass, and when tormented by great thirst, they happily drink whatever they find. Here, those who make an effort at working for the welfare of others do so out of charisma, joy, and surpassing strength. The sun's great rays shine everywhere, traveling like a horse-drawn chariot. The ground supports the world without calculating the burden. Such is the nature of persons of great capacity who lack any self-interest. They are consumed with whatever brings happiness and benefit to the world." So here, we were just speaking of this part. The sun's great rays shine everywhere, traveling like a horse-drawn chariot. It almost sounds like it's talking about Krishna in a way. In the Tibetan, not saying that it is, but it almost sounds like the chariot, the chariot's rays that shine everywhere. But here it's really showing the nature of the sun is to shine everywhere, just like the nature of the ground is support things. As the person of great capacity is to have work for others' sake and not have self-interest. Rinpoche wants to, in the future, look it up, I think, and go over it. It's not as clear in here. We'll table that till next week, and including mandala offering and dedication prayers. Oh, we're out of time, too.
Or you can go to the website and then you can order it off there. Oh, really? Yeah. Cool.
Okay, so the concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer at the end of the prayer book.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular the essential teachings of Venerable Lobsang Drakpa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the 3 times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. All-powerful Avalokiteshvara Tenzin Yatso, may you stay until samsara's end. I pray for the long life of the precious Khensur Wandak, upholder of scriptural and realizational doctrines, the spiritual friend who trained extensively in the 5 great philosophical texts with exceptional wisdom and perseverance. Suji Rimchi Gutsi Shapi Denronang, Lamrim Chenmo Kanga Chiranang. Shira Sobel